And we're live. How you doing? It is Sunday, September 12th. Year of day 5 of our year of Trek, or a year of Trek. It'd be like our year of Trek, our year of the Lord. Okay, so 2 episodes that we watched today. We watched Miri and Dagger of the Mind. So okay. So Miri, we'll just start off with that. One thing I wanted to mention that I did not mention yesterday, I do have a list of birthdays of the main cast and some of the more rememberable of what do you call it? Supporting cast members. So it was Roxanne Dawson's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday. Completely. I did not forget, but I forgot to mention it on the show, something that I'd like to do. So we go, hey, happy birthday, that kind of stuff. So anyway, her birthday was yesterday. Coincidentally, my wife, mainly my wife, I'm just there just to watch every now and then. But anyway, there was a show called Cold Case. I believe, and I did not confirm this on IMDb, but really there's only one Roxanne Dawson out there. And she was an executive producer. She directed a lot of the episodes. So I thought that was kind of cool, seeing her name on there. If you don't know what Cold Case is, it's basically a detective show based on cold cases that they solve. And it has, after, it starts out with them, like whatever storyline that they're going to start off of, that person ends up dying. And then the beginnings has this woman going, oh, and not screaming. It's just this weird yell. And so it's just been a joke that every time we see that show, when it goes into the little teaser credits, that the entire family goes because it's there for no reason. Anyway, so on to today's episodes. We'll start with Miri. It is stardate 2713.5. We've jumped, I think it was, it was a couple episodes ago that we jumped all the way into the 27s. So, they weren't really keeping track of star dates. It was supposed to be just random anyway. So, all right. So, this episode, we find a completely another Earth, essentially, is the way they describe it. Another Earth that is a exact duplicate, except that the world has been taken over by a virus. We don't know if it's a version of the coronavirus, but I swear I did see on an office door in one of the buildings as they were walking around where it says Dr. Fauci, but that may have just been me. I don't know. Anyway, so basically there's this virus and it attacks adults. It ages them. I think the what is it? They came up. Did I write that down? It basically, this occurred about 300 years before their arrival. And I didn't write it down, but if I can remember correctly, Spock says that basically for every month, for every 100 years, they age a month. So, and then of course, once the kids are fine, but once you become a grup, then you get these really ugly lesions and you die this horrible death, become crazy, all that kind of stuff. So, they beam down to the planet because, of course, they don't know all this at the time, but they beam down to the planet and they find basically this desolate planet And then all of a sudden, McCoy, because he played with a toy, picked up and found a toy, he was, as I wrote down, a homeless man attacks McCoy and then gets beat up by Kirk. It's basically, it's an infected guy, but it totally looks like some poor homeless dude attacks McCoy and then Kirk beats up on him. I think Spock helps out too, but so one of the first inhabitants that they encounter is this gal named Miri. Now, Miri, of course, she's, pre-adult, adolescent, like right on the verge of getting there. And so Kirk is like, I don't know if creepy that, okay. So as, of course, he's trying to get some rapport with this character. And says, he asks her his name, or he asks her name, and she says, "Oh, it's Miri." And he says, "A very pretty name for a very young woman, or very pretty young woman. Very pretty," as he puts it. And I'm just like, dude, how creepy can you get? Like, you're like 36 and she's 15. 16 years old, dude, that's creepy. Anyway, so they realize that they have this virus. They realize what's happening. They have the virus, and then it's this search to figure out what's going on, create a vaccine, that kind of stuff. Now, of course, when Spock says, he says all the adults died about 300 years ago. Of course, because we have this wonderful, pandemic going on now. I wrote in my notes, probably because they weren't wearing masks. I don't know. Got to try and find some humor in this. I find it funny. Like I like some of the way the characters were written. So like not the characters were written, but some of the lines that they come up with, things that you would use, like, I don't know, just like lines you could use in normal day communication that would mean something to you, but not mean something to somebody else. It's like throwing in a joke or whatever, but it would mean something. So of course, you have Rock from episode ago going in the before time. And then you have that curly haired dude who's probably going to end up dying here soon anyway, because he looks like he's a little bit old. He says, the way it was in the before time. I don't know. Same writer, just different words. I don't know. So one note. So of course, Kirk, they get their communicator stolen. And so, Kirk goes to look for the communicators, finds them. So Kirk is attacked. And actually, I can't remember if this is before he goes to look for him or not. But I just have this: Kirk is attacked. There is no stunt double needed. Like, it is all Shatner in this scene. He is doing his own stunts. Now, the reason I point this out is because when he uses his phaser and he goes, he basically stuns this one gal, the little gal that attacks him, and he goes over and he's like, she's dead. But you can tell that she's still breathing. Like, do not actors learn how to play dead, but you can still see their chest rise or their stomach rise? Like, you can hold your breath for this scene. I don't know. Am I being too stingy on that? Okay. And so of course, Spock is asymptomatic, but he is a carrier. So he can't go back to the ship. So they have all the computers beamed down. Now, like I said, the communicators are stolen by the kids. Kirk goes to look for them. Now, there's a line that McCoy throws out saying without the communicators, they can't like test any vaccines. They can't test any of this stuff without the computers, and they need the communicators to talk to the computers on. And of course, they have these little machines, these little computer modules that had been beamed down from the ship. So here's a question, and I don't know if this has been answered, but this is something that I thought of while watching this. Do the communicators act as wireless hotspots for those other devices? So they're like not just a communicator. So like, this phone I can call other people with, but I can also create a hotspot to run the laptop. So are the communicators like that? I would say so. If we have the technology now, they definitely have the technology in the 23rd century. Now I know I don't know which kid it was. He picks up a couple different kids in the different scenes, but I know Shatner has said that one of the kids in those scenes is his daughter, and it might be his daughter Elizabeth. I'm not sure, but when he gets beaten down by all the kids, there is this little blonde girl standing there, and she's just looking at him, smiling, like she's standing on top of the desk, and he's getting beaten down, and and I was like, is that his daughter? Was that his daughter? Because it would be like, daddy's getting beaten down. I think that's kind of funny. But it also could have been when he does his Kirk-ish monologue. It could have been the little girl that he picked up during that scene. And it could have also been, because it's a different kid, when he's coming back to Fauci's lab, he's carrying another girl, and a different girl. So that could have also been his daughter. So I just don't know which one it was. I just know that she was in there. Not a bad episode. I think, I mean, of course, classic. They're all classic episodes. They're fun to watch. I just thought that was, I think that really, like, Kirk was kind of creepy. She's a teenager, dude. Like, okay, technically she's 300 years old, but she's got the body of a teenager. Really? Yeah. Stick to the green women. It's okay. All right. So on to Dagger of the Mind. The kind of the precursor to There Are Four Lights. The Enterprise, I don't remember there ever being a star date called out during this one, so I don't have one written down. But there's a couple different things that this episode establishes, at least for me, from what memory serves. So Enterprise is visiting a penal colony, and they're making a delivery and making a pickup. And during that pickup, they get a what they're initially thinking is a prisoner, but it's actually Dr. Van Gelder, who is an associate of Dr. Adams, the penal colony major dude, and who's really famous for turning things around and making people super happy. And they talk about the differences between, the penal colonies where they're all cages, and these other penal colonies where I think Kirk even calls them resorts. So Van Gelder is hiding out in this box that gets beamed up, and he escapes. And I wrote judo chop because, of course, he goes up behind the tech and he goes, He does that with his left hand both times. Is the actor left-handed? I don't know. Anyway, so he judo chops and knocks out the technician. A little bit of Trek dough there, and runs around. So there's somebody spots him and calls up to the bridge and says, "Hey, this is this, deck 14, section whatever. So deck 14, I don't know how many decks are on the Enterprise. I seem to remember, and I honestly, I busy day today. I didn't have time to do any research. I seem to remember there only being, at some point, only 13 decks. For some reason, the 13, not that there are only 13 Constitution class ships. That's different. But that there's 13 decks. Now, are there 13 decks in the saucer section? Or are there 13 decks from the bottom to the top? I can't remember. I'll have to research that. And of course, Ray isn't on here, so he can't search Google for me, and don't really want to search Google right now. Anyway, because of course, Star Trek V, there's 75 decks? That's like 2 Enterprises stacked on top of each other, at least. Anyway, we'll talk about Star Trek V when we get there. So anyway, there's at least 14 decks on the Enterprise. That's one thing that's established. Now, of course, Shatner's just like, yeah, it's good, Bones. We're good. And Bones is like, nah, I got this feeling. I just have this feeling, and I'm going to put it in my log, which means you have to do something about it. And so Shatner's like, or Kirk's like, fine. So they go and investigate, and he tells the doctor, it's like, okay, fine. If I have to go investigate, then you need to give me somebody who knows this topic. So, it has to be a psychologist, and they have to be good. And so, on the way down to the transporter room, Dr. McCoy tells Kirk, oh, hey, I got somebody for you. And that's exactly how he says it. It's like, okay, buddy, you wanted me to find somebody. I'm going to stick this to you. So of course, who is it? It's somebody that Kirk knocked boots with. Now we don't know that for sure. We don't know if they bumped uglies or not. At least not in this scene, but it totally is like, hey, you remember me? I was at the Christmas party and you showed up. And he's like, shh. Okay. So yeah, Kirk's a player, sleeping around. Now we don't know exactly what happens until later on in the episode, but it's kind of insinuated. Now, of course, every uniform has to be different. They have to have different logos, at least in this series. So I love the hand and the dove and the little sun on the penal colony uniforms. It's just like peace, love, and happiness. I just, and I guess, if you're trying to psychologically, rehabilitate people and get them in, get the violence out of them, they have to be peace, love, and happiness. Let's see. The Vulcan mind meld that was established in this episode. Spock uses it on Dr. Van Gelder. I kind of want to know, and I might have to kind of keep my mind out for this, is that, and I think I first really noticed it in Voyager, where Tuvok was like, my mind to your mind. And then I started hearing it other places. So I don't know if because Enterprise came after Voyager. So because what's her name did it at one time or later on in the series. But I can't remember if Spock ever used that terminology. So of course, we're only 10 episodes in or 9 episodes into the season. So as we watch stuff, we'll remember like, oh, that's what he said. Or we'll get confirmation on different lines. Anyway, so he does the Vulcan mind meld. They get more information out of Van Gelder. And of course they're like, hey, Kirk, so the dude is saying this, you probably shouldn't do this. Cause even like, oh, I think we're going to spend the night. And Van Gelder's like, no, no. Sorry, I got to plug in no, don't. He's in danger. Adams will destroy him. So knowing all, like, Kirk is smarter than that. You think? I don't know. I wrote this note. It's kind of irresponsible of Kirk to subject himself to random machines that he doesn't know exactly what they do. Like, they showed him the neuralizer machine. Like, oh yeah, sure. I'm going to sit in this chair. This gal that, you know, that I made out with all night at a Christmas party, I'm going to put her in control of the controls, you know, like, really? Dude, Kirk, seriously? Anyway, and of course, you know, when they're testing it out, they're playing, oh, you know, they figure out that it's like a mind wipe thing. Now, Kirk, as they're doing that, of course, Adams comes in and says, oh, you know, you love Helen, and you do anything for her. You'd risk your life and your career and blah, 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 blah. And now she's gone and he's turning dials, and Kirk is like, oh. So when they're back in the room before, you know, and Helen is like, oh, don't you remember? This is this. It's like Kirk kind of snaps out of it, kind of. And he's like, oh, I'm the Kirk that we've always known before. He's got a pretty strong brain. Like, that's, you know, I don't know. Did he do, like, in his mind, that special, Spock, I don't want any of your half-breed ideas, leave me alone type of brain thoughts in his own brain to click it open, or to click him back into normal? Because Van Gelder, like, he was pretty messed up. Like, that's what I would think Kirk would be like, but I guess not. Anyway, so they save the day, or at least Helen saves the day. Helen's got a pretty good, like, she does the whole, God, what's his name? Shoot. The whole Die Hard thing, John, whatever his last name is. I can't remember. I've got Star Trek on the brain. Anyway, so she's all doing the, you know, the Die Hard crawling through the ducks. I don't know if maybe because they talked about a Christmas party, maybe she's like, oh, come out to the coast. We'll have a few laughs. And then, so she does her little crawly thing, saves the day, kills one of the guys, inadvertently by throwing him up against one of the, electrical panels. Now, when she comes back to the room, because Kirk has gone off for another treatment, and then the power goes out. He comes back, so, you know, we all watch that. So when she comes back through the AC ducts, and he pulls her out, and he says, oh, I can't remember what he says, but then he starts sucking on her face. And she starts, oh, Captain, Adams, you know, Adams gave you that idea. Or maybe, no, she said that before. I don't know what he said this, but I know Spock comes up and says something. And maybe she does say something about Adams, because he's like, oh my gosh, Dr. Adams. And then they run away. But his initial, like, oh, you're okay, I love you, I'm going to suck your face. Maybe his brain isn't, like, there's still that residual. It's too bad they didn't play on this, because of course, it's episodic, and, you know, whatever happens in this episode is kind of lost in another episode. But like, maybe his brain is going by. So, which I know, left turn at Albuquerque. I'm squirreling here. Let's go back to Miri just for a quick second, because I thought about this. Dr. McCoy vaccines himself, and he gives himself a pretty big dose. Responsible? I don't know. Being the savior. He does this throughout the series, and if you've watched the series, you know. Going to the next generation, maybe he's been dosing himself with all these different vaccines that he's created. He's like double dosing himself, so he like lives longer than everybody else. I don't know. Okay, back to the show. Anyway, so they kiss, they realize, okay, and then Van Gelder, because the power comes back on, Van Gelder is in the room alone, and it's like, and if you don't have any voices in there, there's nothing to implant, so he basically dies of a brain wipe. And then they have their little cutesy thing at the end, which can't really remember what they said. My brain's kind of wiped today, but there you go. I like this episode too. I like all the episodes. Maybe there's one or two original generation episodes I'm not really a fan of, but I don't know. I get it. That we have stuff established in this episode. I kind of like the whole, Kirk running into a crew member that what did she said? Oh, we danced and you talked about the stars. So maybe they didn't really suck face all night. I don't know. But you would think there's only 400 and some, people on the ship. You would think that he might actually run into her. I don't know. So there you go. There's those two episodes. No birthdays today. Let's bring up what we're doing tomorrow. So tomorrow we have the Corbomite maneuver and both parts of the menagerie. So what's the rule? The rule is that Saturdays are our default 3-episode days. And if there's a 2-part episode, such as in what is in tomorrow, the menagerie part 1 and menagerie part 2, if a 2-part episode ends up being the second episode of the day, which tomorrow it is, then that day becomes an automatic 3-episode day. You have to watch both parts. Therefore, Monday, tomorrow, is going to be a 3-episode day, and Saturday will actually only be 2 episodes. So we don't want to watch any more than what we need, because then it'll stretch out evenly over the year. So there you go. Corbomite maneuver and the menagerie. We will talk about those tomorrow. I don't have an exact time set on that, but I would say probably a safe time would be 7 p.m. Let's do that. 7 p.m. tomorrow, Pacific time. And so until then, live long and prosper. Have fun watching the episodes, and we'll see you tomorrow.